$550 million in real estate, over 4,000 units, and 100% equity. Those are just some of the highlights we're going to be talking about today with our special guest. Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Report, empowering you to build generational wealth with real estate. I'm your host, Chris Berg, head of business development with Abernathy Holdings. We build Class A self-storage sites in California and Arizona. Joining us today, it's going to be a great success story about investing in real estate. He is the founder and CEO of Rankin Holdings, Logan Rankin. Logan, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Yeah, I appreciate being on. Thanks for having me, Chris.
I'm excited to jump in the story because it's amazing what you've done in 10 years. This is on your website. It's kind of a timeline of your success story, and it shows back in 2013 was your first real estate investment. What I'd like to really focus on as you share this story today is what are the KPIs that you've been focused on over the last decade that you feel are the most important to your success? What are the processes that you've put in place and that you continue to refine and improve? And then one of the things I've heard you talk about is the velocity of money. So what are you focused on to really help improve and increase that velocity of money? So let's just go back to 2013. You got a great gig at Target. You're making good money. What was the inspiration to say, hey, I'm going to start investing in real estate?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people look at just the real estate journey, but they actually forget about like the W-2 job, and where I really got the opportunity to learn a lot before applying that in my real estate businesses. So, I worked at a Fortune 50 company for 10 years. I got to, hone my skills, make a lot of mistakes, and learn a lot when it came to leadership. And I don't think we talk a lot about leadership in real estate, or at least as not as much as we should. I got to learn a lot about like operations and systems, and how do you build them? How do you improve them? And how do you draw the leadership and the systems to go to the KPI or the P&L? And I got a chance to do some really cool things, lead a lot of people, even simple things like interviewing and firing and developing and promoting. I'm just super thankful for that. So I just think I just wanted to mention that too, Chris, because I think when you look at my journey, it's really cool to see the trajectory that has happened in real estate or the businesses. But I had to learn a lot of those skills that I think people learn that in a lot of different ways. So I always hear should you just start by jumping into real estate? I think you want to start by learning skills. And however you do that, that's okay. It's okay to have a W-2 job for a while. And I'm super thankful, at least of my experience and my W-2 job and what I was able to learn. And then, at some point you want to apply those skills. And as I became better at leading large teams, cross-organizational, as I got a chance to see bigger and bigger P&Ls and really learn how to tie operations into everything and make more money, like you said, and, nights and weekends, long hours. But I was fortunate enough to work for a company that would pay for performance, and seniority didn't mean as much. So I started making more and more money. And, Chris, I wanted to put it to work. And I, unfortunately, didn't have a lot of education from school or from wealthy family or friends. So I had to read a lot. You read enough books, right? You come across a ton of different ways to be able to, utilize your money. I felt like, reading annual reports or being a stock investor, that just wasn't right for me. I didn't feel like I had a lot of control. So I remember reading a book about real estate and how a very high percentage of the wealthiest people put their money in real estate. And I'm like, well, this sounds easy enough to understand. My wife and I talked about it, which is key, I think, if you're married or you have a spouse, to bring them along on this journey. And, she was working a ton too. She was a nurse. So we were both working, nights and weekends and 70-hour work weeks. And it took us 2 years, but we saved up for enough. And we bought that first single family house that you saw on the chart in 2013. And we bought it wrong. We screwed up just about everything you can screw up. But there's one thing we didn't screw up. We underwrote the deal based on what the book said. Put in proper operating income and expenses. I mean, it's a single family home, so it's pretty tough to screw up in the first place, right? You don't got that many line items. But I was just amazed a year went by that we had within $100 of what we underwrote it for. And it just felt I was managing it ourselves. It just felt very, very much predictable. And I felt a great level of responsibility in my investments. And I didn't feel that since that in anything else, right? Just put 5% or 10% into your 401k or Roth IRA or stocks. I didn't feel like I had the control or the predictability or felt the responsibility that I could, velocitize where I put my money. I wanted more control, and that investment gave it to us. So, that's what it was pretty much every year after that doubling. The next year we bought a duplex, which is 2 units. And we just saved up everything we went broke. The year after that we bought 2 duplexes. So everyone sees like the trajectory, but I mean, it took me 3 years to buy 7 units. A lot of people start their journey jumping into 7 units or 70 units. I didn't. I managed it all to 7 units. And then from 7 to 250, I had a third-party management company, which just helped me learn more about operations of what I didn't know in the property management. I knew it in retail, but like, how could I apply that, right? And so I got to learn that from somebody managing my property, and they did a pretty good job. But I knew that if I could build my own company and apply the skills that I was learning in my job, that I could build a company that was, geared towards velocitizing my money and ultimately like growing my portfolio faster and faster. And that's where you see like 2019 to today, growing exponentially. I think 2022 closed on 1,235 units. Last year, very tough economic environment, but we closed on 1,116 units. So, really built the company and the processes and put the right people in the right place to be able to grow at a much quicker pace than I did my first 3 years.
I want to get into that piece. There's so much to unpack from what you just said. So let's back up to the leadership piece. Because I love how you said, hey, go get some skills first, Chris. Don't feel like you got to jump in and go buy you did 1,100 units out of the gates. So one, talk about your leadership development. What do you think makes an outstanding leader? And then if you can remember this, top 3 books a person who's just getting started should read that you read.
Yeah, one of my favorite books right off the bat is How to Win. I think it's How to Win Friends and Influence Others. Good to Great is another really good one. I have a whole bunch posted on my website as well too. But I think what makes a great leader is somebody that, first of all, is willing and wanting to grow. Right? They know, even myself. Right? There's things I'm working on this year that I need to be better at for my companies. And I think it's being accountable and aware of where your strengths are and where your opportunities are. I think the worst leadership, skill that you can have is, not being aware or not being accountable. If you don't know who you are and what you're good at or where your weakness is, it's really, really tough to be a great boss for your team. I think competitive greatness is huge. I look for people that are just hungry, that are not constantly just wanting to be better themselves, but constantly focused on how to make their teams better, right? How to win as a group. And you can tell that right away. I probably overemphasize attitude. I think, we don't put enough property management in the world that we're in, retail, the world I was in. Man, the only thing that is every single day is it's going to be different and there's going to be a new challenge. So the way you look at those problems, and if you look at problems as solutions, and you're solution oriented and you're positive for your team, the engagement is higher, and ultimately those KPI and those results are higher too. So those are like a few of the things that we really look for. I mean, it shocks people, but my leaders in the company, we have 9 leaders, we have 4 directors, and I got a president in my property management company, right? All but one person, all those leaders, only one person had real estate or property management experience. The rest of them didn't have any. They didn't own real estate. They never worked in property management, but yet all of them are working in my company. And that's because they knew leadership. They were in leadership roles, right? They had the skills and abilities that I just shared with you. And that's what I'm looking for. Because it doesn't matter if you're in real estate. It doesn't matter if you're in property management. You got to know how to lead. I can teach real estate. I can teach property management. Shit, when I started my property management company, I didn't know hardly anything either. But here I am, going to the evictions, doing the leasing. Like, we started this thing with 4 people. So people, they see 4,080 units that I have now. But I started this company. I had to do the tasks along with the president and only like 3 other people. So I needed people that wanted competitive greatness, that were willing to learn, that had that positive attitude. to a skill set that is, which really helps. I mean, a lot of our, there's a lot of renovation techs in our company. I would argue, I think about half that come to our company, right? They're doing our rehabs and they don't have the skills, right? Why not build the training program if they have great work ethic and they have a great attitude? Those are harder things to teach, right? We can teach you how to swing a hammer. We can teach you how to put an LVP. And so that's what we've done. Like we've focused on training and development and leadership in our company behind those processes.
Do you happen to know the name Graham Weaver?
Mm-mm.
I am so in love with this conversation right now, Logan. Graham Weaver is a teacher at the Stanford Business School. He's in private equity. He's got about $15 billion of assets, AUM for them. But I'll share this with you because he's building out, companies in PE. And he says, look, you can give me a software tech guy to be my next CEO, which is fine. But I will tell you one thing, when I hire, even if he has no experience in tech, but I hire the guy that's got the will to win, he's going to win every time over the course of time. So to hear what you're saying is great because it's exactly what, Graham Weaver would say. And I think it's really powerful for people to understand his skills are one thing, but go out and find those persons that are hungry and want to win. I want to get into a little bit about maybe it was the KPIs, and maybe, I'd love to hear about your belief systems around going from basically 0 to 7 units in 3 years, and then over 4,000 plus in the next 7 years. Like, what was that mental shift that happened after 3 years?
Yeah, there's a few. I would say first one, I started looking at properties, not just as buildings anymore that you acquire, but as businesses. I think that was a big mental shift for me, buying a business, looking at it as acquiring a business and how to run that business better is important. Like there's real people that live there, and the better that you can provide experiences for them, the better that you can do maintenance for them, the better that property looks. A, attracts higher rent that people would be able to pay, and B, it keeps them there, right? Retention. A lot of people say you make money on the lease, but they're wrong. You make money on the renewal, right? That's where the real money is made. And I started looking at this as like a total business. How do I increase the experience? How do I increase the standards? How do I increase the speed? And that was the first shift for me. I'll be honest. I think I come from retail. I think the competition is very high, right? At Target, we're going against huge people that are constantly up in their game, like Amazon and Walmart. I come to property management and I find that the competition is very weak. The competition is not being upgraded. It's very archaic. We don't even like calling ourselves a property management company. We want to be more of an experience company. So I'm pretty lucky that, we're comparing ourselves against property management companies that just haven't changed. You would be so surprised the even 100+ unit acquisitions that we buy, that the previous property management company or the previous owner is still knocking on the door for rent, right? There's only, barely answering the phone, not investing in that apartment community. There's a lot of that in our industry. And that's, brings me to the second big shift. I started to realize, like, if I focus in, what is the biggest problem, right? And how can I help solve that? And, the majority of my units are in Wisconsin. I own some in Ohio as well. And I realized we had a really big problem in Wisconsin. It's not just having enough multifamily or units for people to live in, but we had 1970 product with shade carpet and lime green walls, renting out for very little, 500 and 600, because you just really couldn't. I mean, the landlord didn't put any money in it. And then you had brand new construction renting out for 2,500, 3,000, much more today. And there's just nothing in between, right? And there's nothing in between because there wasn't a lot of people that could create systems at a fair cost to be able to take the 1970 product and upgrade it, right? So that it actually looks very, very nice. You upgrade the shade carpet to beautiful luxury vinyl plank, and you paint it and you put in new cabinets, and you bring life back to that apartment. But instead of charging for 2,500, you charge 1,000. There wasn't a lot in the middle. And what I realized, there's a lot of people that can afford in the middle or want to afford in the middle. They couldn't afford the A class and didn't want to live in the 1970 product that hasn't been invested in, and you can't call your property management for anything. So that was the second big revelation I had, is that, man, if I can build not just a property management company, but an actual construction company too, right away, I wonder how much of an advantage I could have. And I wonder how quickly I could take the business from where the 1970 business where it is here and then change it to here. And I just applied speed because everything is about speed in business, and upgraded our systems to be able to do that. I mean, COVID was a big one for us. There's a lot of people that couldn't get materials and they couldn't get labor. Even today, we haven't had labor issues and we haven't had material issues. Like, you negotiate those ahead of time, you utilize your systems. I mean, one of our biggest suppliers literally houses the majority of our materials at zero cost and ships it to our place now. Now, some of that comes with economy of scale. You can't do that at seven units. But my point is, if you look at where the problems are and you look at problems as a good thing, because problems are barriers to entry. And if they're big enough, they keep a lot of people away. And I think, not just in Wisconsin, most of the Midwest, maybe everywhere, there's just a lot of older apartments, and it's very hard to strategically and with a lot of speed be able to reposition those apartments to bring life back to them and charge a healthy or a fair amount to be able to get your return. And that was a big revelation for me. And I'm just gonna say the last one, sorry, it's a long answer, is just focusing and sticking with it. Wow. I don't own offices. I don't own retail. I don't own storage. I get offers for it all the time. I only do multifamily. I only buy 1950 to 2010. I don't build, right? I only buy and I rehab, and then we manage. I don't buy and sell. I don't buy and fix and flip. So I just stuck to one thing. And I took my entire organization, which went from 4 people to 104 today in 4 years. I have 104 people only focused on one thing and how to be the very best, right, at value add multifamily investing in the Midwest. And we're trying really hard to get better every single day. But instead of spreading that out among a lot of different asset classes or jumping into other businesses or, grabbing, I get asked all the time to invest. Or even my strategy of keeping the equity. You know what I mean? Like, there's been a lot of deals I've had to pass up because I haven't had the money. Yes, I've used creative financing and all those things, but I just figured out different ways to be able to keep things simple and apply a lot of intensity to it, even the way that I buy apartments.
Couple of things. One, and you and I talked about this on Monday, is you sound a lot like Gary Tharaldson. Gary in his book talks about stick to your knitting, right? Stick to what you know. I think what's fascinating with your background is there's some Jeff Bezos coming from you from the same way. You're kind of mixing retail with the real estate. What I mean specifically is you are saying, hey, Chris, I'm customer focused. Remember, Amazon's customer obsessed, right? Like, what can I do to really hone in on my customers? But also, too, I get the sense, if you remember Bezos and some of his, Wall Street quarterly calls, he's like, I don't care about quarters. I'm not looking at quarters. I'm looking at decades. So you guys can sit here and do whatever you want to do to my stock price. I could care less because I know where we're going. And I think that's another powerful mindset that I've heard you talk about is, Chris, I'm talking, in decades. Gary talks about in half centuries. So if you can just speak to that real quick.
Yeah, every process we design is geared that way too. Like, if the process doesn't work today and it can't grow for the next 10 years, then it's the wrong process. A lot of people build process for today. Well, your business should never stay the same. Like, right, your business, if you're staying still, it's dying. So like, we design even our processes for the next decades. Like, how many units will we have? Like 25,000, that's where I think we'll be in the next decade. So all of our process should be able to handle at least 25,000. And you mentioned KPIs, like all of our KPIs, geared towards like providing what our customers need. You talked about speed and Amazon. Like, I study them all the time, and same with Jeff. And we're trying to do some things in our industry that are, close to them. For example, like in our industry, it takes forever for most management companies to fix things. I identified that right away, like shocking, like 3.5 weeks on average. And now I'm considering everything, not just a garbage disposal, but like, an appliance, this, whatever, but 3.5 weeks, so how do we cut that down? We focused in 2022 on getting up to 95% of all work orders done in 48 hours. So we're like, we can do it in 2 days. Last year in 2023, we did it 48 hours and 97% of the time. But here's what we also did. We started tracking 24 hours. So 88% of the time, we did work orders in 24 hours. Now we do 800 work orders a month. Okay. So if you think about that, in 2022, we only did about 12 to 15% within 24 hours. That's 900 work orders. So in 2022, we did 900 work orders. And I had, before this call, my operations director talked to me about how many last year. Last year, we did 8,448 work orders in 24 hours. So our goal, you talked about Amazon, it'd be pretty cool if you were renting from us, Chris, and you woke up in the morning and you needed, you had a leak underneath your sink and you put in a maintenance request. And then we, can tell you that, hey, at the same time, Chris, before you leave to work, I know you were looking for a new razor. Would you mind ordering that on Amazon? And then before Amazon can deliver whatever you ordered, we have the leak under the sink fixed. Like, we want to be faster than Amazon. I know it's two different industries, but like, Amazon's known for speed. We want to be known for speed, and we want to be shockingly better. And we build systems around that too. Like, our service tech work stream is one of our best work streams in an entire company. We have a very, very strong process, which, as Charlie Munger would say, that has great incentives that help us with the outcome. So like our maintenance, there's a 13-step easy process. I know we don't have time for that today, but like, they follow the 13 steps, but within the 13 steps, like there's different benchmarks that they have to do and that they're measured on. For example, can I share this KPI with you?
Yeah, please.
So for a service tech to get bonused, right, we want to measure them on experience. We want to measure them on speed. And then we want to measure them on quality/budget. Because we also understand there's push and pull. Like, if we only focus on speed, then they might not be fixing that leak the right way and have to come back. So that's why you need the quality/budget, right? If you fix it right the first time, you're not going to have to come back, which is going to help you make your budget. You're going to be quality. And we also want friendliness, because like, who do you picture that's the guy that you're calling to fix your leaky sink? A lot of people picture a older, crabby guy, because there's not a lot of young people that can fix things these days, but you might picture somebody that's just like crabby to be able to do it. So, I remember when we rolled this out like 2 years ago, our best service stack was like, you're going to measure me on experience. And we use AppFolio. AppFolio, when a service tech goes and they fix it, it automatically sends a survey through our property management software and basically says, rate them on a 1 to 5 scale based on experience. We told our service techs we're going to bonus them off of 5 stars through our AppFolio internal survey. He's like, what do you want me to do? Like, I don't have your energy. I'm not going to go there and just like start high-fiving tenants that need to fix the sink. And I said, I knew sign of a good leader is when you roll something out, you gotta be ready for the pushback. So of course I knew that the experience thing. I said, Tony, if I share with you just 3 simple things that you have to do, just 3, because these guys, like, I got to do this, this, and this. Experience, like, well, yeah. What are they? What are the 3 things? Okay, they're super simple. Tony, when you roll up to the door, our processes, you already know the tenant's name and what they need to fix, right? It's right on your phone, right on the AppFolio work order report. So all I want you to do is knock on the door. You say, hey, Chris, this is Tony. I'm here to fix your work. I'm here to fix your leak. Would you like me to wear my booties or take my shoes off? Is that, like, can you do that? Step 1? That's a pretty easy thing. He's like, oh yeah, that's easy. All right. When you walk in, I want you to give 1 compliment. And I don't care what it is. You see a kid on the sofa, you say, cute kid. You say, oh, nice picture. Great. Oh, what's your cat's name? Look, beautiful cat. Tony, I don't care what it is. You just give 1 compliment. And you know what step 3 is, Tony? He goes, what's step 3? You just fix the thing they wanted fixed by working neat and clean, and you get the hell out of there. Could you do those 3 things? Because I promise you, if you do those 3 things, you're going to get a 5-star. Guarantee it. And of course, like, now he's our advocate. He's training the new guys. He's like, this is so, because can you imagine, like, a guy greets you, a service that greets you, and you just actually say your name, ask to take their shoes off. They walk in, they actually give a compliment. Like, that is not what you expected in our industry. Like I said, the bar's a little bit low. And then we just fix it, working neat and clean, and we get the hell out of there. People they just want to fix, man. Like, they just want to fix. So 100%. If we can add a little, so for most of our processes, we just try to, like, make it very, very basic, and they get scored, for each metric. Speed, we measure, like I said, the quality / budget and the experience. And then at the end of the month, if they met 2 to 3 scores, they get X bonus. 1 of the 3 or all 3, they get their bonus multiplied by the amount of units that they're able to do work orders for, which I think is really cool too, because it also incentivizes them to want to take on more units or take on a bigger territory or run that territory more efficiently.
Man, so if I'm Tony, I'm also walking out the door going, oh, by the way, Logan, would you mind just doing the app thing for me and giving me 5 stars if you were happy with today's experience? If I know that's going to beat my compensation, right?
Right.
So you touched on it when I'm having this picture of you like showing up each morning, you got a cup of coffee, going into some sort of dashboard that's showing you these KPIs. Is that true, number one? And if so, what's on your dashboard and what are you focused on the most?
Yeah, I love that question. By the way, the dashboard that people need to see is the people that are driving the KPIs. So like a lot of people have dashboards for the president or, for me as the owner or for the directors. Like that's great. And you should, so you can follow up. But the real people that need to see the dashboard are the actual team members that are driving the results. So like I want my rental techs to be able to open up their phone and see how many rehabs in a row did they have perfect quality. How many rehabs in a row did they meet their speed goal, right? I want my engagement specialists. Those are receptionists in our company. And by the way, every single person in our company is scored on 3 or less metrics. That is it. You might have other job responsibilities, but you are only scored on 3. You are not allowed to have 4. Your boss will never coach you on the 4th. Might talk to you about the 4th, but you will never even see the 4th. The 3 biggest things. Each team member only has 3. That's it. So even if you're an engagement specialist who answers the phone at our company, right? We're going to measure you on speed, and then we're going to measure you on quality, right? We record all of our conversations. But I want you to see your dashboard. I want you to see how many calls did you answer yesterday, and how many calls did you answer on the second ring. We score answering the phone on the second ring at our company because we identified that property management companies don't answer the phone at all. So I said, it's not enough just to answer the phone. We're going to answer it on the second ring. We're going to be that much better. 97.8% of the time we answer the phone on the second ring last year, and we get 250 calls per day. So if you ask my brand manager, we test that all the time. Like before this podcast, I jumped on and called our office, second ring, right? And then we got to have a lot of energy and we got to want to solve those problems and give the resident everything that they deserve. But she knows, she can look, how many calls in a row did I do it on the second ring? And then, by the way, we blast that scoreboard not only to all the engagement specialists, but to all the people within that work stream. I'm just a huge believer that the best processes always end with a scoreboard, and it's very visible. Whether you suck or you're amazing, everybody in your company should see it. And I've had HRs be like, oh, you can't show those poor results to everybody. Like you're going to make that person feel bad. No, I want that person who has poor results to see that dashboard. And the person I want on my team is like, I'm going to call the best person. I'm going to call the person that does. I don't even need to talk to my boss. First, I'm going to say like, how did this person go 100 for 100 answering on the second ring? And what do I need to do differently? Like the people I want on my team see that they're not where they want to be. And they identify that now they can also see where they want to be, and they can use our team in a collaborative way to get better. So our scoreboards are very visible. It's the first thing you see. We can push them to all the TVs throughout our office. We also push them to Slack. So even you can pull up your phone. Wow. The app is right on integrated into Slack, so you can be able to see that. And then obviously our leaders should coach and recognize based off of that as well. But we take it it's not just about coaching and recognizing. We also pay for it too. Like we have incentives throughout our company that align to these scoreboards, which I think just makes it more real.
So what's your tech stack? Is it just AppFolio? Is it AppFolio being able to measure all this from phone calls and on down, or do you have more of a tech stack than that?
Yeah, more than a tech stack than that. So we use AppFolio did a pretty good job, I think, a year and a half ago, integrating technology and AI, and even a stack of apps that you can buy, and then it's easily integrated into AppFolio. But we use other ones too, like our scoreboards. We use Spinify. So it integrates into Slack. It can pretty much integrate and push a really visible scoreboard off of anything. I mean, even a Google Sheets, it could take and do it. So we we try to look at anything that we feel like could help our business. And certainly AppFolio, we try to house a ton, but there's other technology and AI outside of it too.
So I'm curious because I mean, if you've got it down to the granular level, hey Chris, we are measuring how many people are picking up on the second ring. I think most people listening to this are gonna think, wow, that's pretty granular. So what are you focused on now? Do you feel like, hey, Chris, if I could just refine these processes, it's going to give me this much more leverage and efficiency in my business?
Yeah, you mean like how we're upgrading the processes we already have?
Yeah, like is there anything within these processes right now where you're starting to see some challenges and go, hey, Chris, if I could just do X inside this process, I know that it's going to generate this much more efficiency within my business.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest ones. So I kind of talked about it. We're moving from 48 to 24, and then we want to publicly state for any resident that's living there if we can't do that renovation within the 24 hours, that every day until we do it, your rent is free. Like we want to be able to say that, right?
Wow.
For retention. We already do this one is, we do a lot of virtual showings. We have the number one renter is not baby boomers anymore. You have a lot more Gen X, Gen Z, millennials that are renting, and they don't want to do the in-person showings. Like they don't have time. And the last thing they want is a leasing expert, walking them through the units. So we have a lot of virtual, right? So one of the things we've identified though is you don't actually get to see your exact unit. We rehab them all about the same. And you don't actually get to see your unit though, which, causes people to be a little bit nervous before they move in. So we also say like, hey, within the first 2 weeks, if you don't like it for any reason, like full money back, you can move out. Like we're good. Like it's fine. Like there's we'll rip up the contract. We'll put that in there. But why? Because we're measuring the quality of our rehabs. We know that 98.5 times when we're done with the rehab, for every 100 people that move in, 1.5 are not going to be satisfied. We can live with that, right? We did something wrong, we'll go in and fix it or whatever. But that's such a high percentage that why wouldn't we guarantee it? Why wouldn't we let somebody out that is not happy, with the unit that they walked into? So we're trying to refine things like that too. We can get a lot. We're working really hard at getting better on site. We have community ambassadors, not property managers on our sites because we believe in more specialization versus generalist. I think it's something I've read a lot about. And when I really started growing, property managers are generalists. No one's going to tell me any different. They are average. Maybe you have a really good one that's slightly above average at 30 different tasks, right? They do the delinquency, they do the move outs, they do the evictions, they post the 5-day notices, they coordinate with vendors, sometimes they do the cleaning, they do the showings, they do the leasings. I could go on. Like they just do everything. Nobody can do that many things really, really well. So, we don't have property managers. We certainly have people on site or people in territories. You'll always see people in our apartment communities. You might even see more, but they're only sticking to their lane. Like a community ambassador, the only thing that they do is the exterior and the interior of common areas. They are not in charge of the units. They don't fix things. They don't renovate things. They don't do leasing. They don't do delinquency. They make sure the grass looks perfect, the snow is plowed, the common areas not just look good, but actually smell good. I mean, anybody's in the apartment game, it's going to smell like, food, smoke, maybe marijuana. I don't want that. Like I want residents walking in and smelling fresh linen. That's our scent. Like we have a scent, that we try to make sure all of our hallways smell like. And they're in charge of making sure that happen. They're in charge of making sure that the trash is always spotless. Like trash is a big deal at apartment complex. So our bar is that somebody could walk to the trash receptacle barefoot, right? That's our bar. We don't just cut the grass. We edge it. We fertilize it, right? We landscape it. We want our grass to look better than the single family house across the road. Like that's their job, is how do you bring the details to life in this apartment complex so that the residents want to stay there. They love it. They know that their experience that they're getting is better than they previously had, or we at least set the bar really high, if they were having an experience somewhere else. So just trying to refine those processes too, because I want to make sure, especially in the first 90 days when somebody moves in, that we just like exceed their expectations in every way possible. Because I don't think we'll hear from them if we do that for, the next 9 months. So what can we do in that first 90 days to be able to drive that type of experience and tie it all home is one of the things that we're working really hard at.
I want to get onto the velocity of money, what you're doing to velocitize that, which I love the way you say it. And one of the things that we haven't really said explicitly, but you continue to go back to, is just the power of focus. And I think it was if I'm not mistaken, Gary Keller from Keller Williams that wrote the book, The One Thing, which essentially was like, look, just focus and do one thing amazing. So I want to give you a chance with inside of your KPIs and your processes, just the importance of focus within your business.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of people talk about it, but I think very few truly understand it. And I think and take the time to be better at it, because it's a skill that you can actually get better at too. So yeah, we try really hard at that. Like a lot of our leadership meetings actually talk about different things within the focus bucket that you can do. Like, just there's so many people that don't do something that it sounds so simple, but taking 45 minutes once a day, I'd argue even if you did it like 1 hour a week, where you do nothing, you sit at your desk with no phone, no computer, maybe a pen and paper, and you just think, you do deep work and deep thinking. And it's crazy, the ideas, what happens when your brain's not constantly, stimulated, and you're just focusing on, you write down one topic. I want to think about for the next hour, not actually do anything or research anything, just think about this process. I do that a lot. And I do other activities like that too. Like every single Sunday, I go through my entire calendar, and I first start with looking at the week before. Did I follow the calendar, the intentional calendar I put together? I mean, I go as far as like literally scheduling and time blocking, time away from work. I want to make sure I'm a present dad. I coach both of my kids, and I get so wrapped up in my business and growth and everything that I want to do. And the last thing I want to do is be a bad dad or a bad husband. So, I mean, it sounds weird, but it works for me. I'm intentional. Like, this is my time with my wife. Like, right. This is my time with my kids. And then at the end of the week, I just got to ask myself, was that the allocation that made sense with my priorities? And did I stick to it? Why or why not? And then based on that, discussion with myself, I set the priorities for the next week. There might be like a 2-hour meeting where I say, I don't think I need to be in that 2-hour meeting. Like, in fact, I skipped out on half of it and I don't feel like I missed anything. So next week, let's just change that 2-hour meeting from 2 hours to 1 hour. So just taking the time on Sundays or once a week, just to look at where you're spending your time. Are you okay with how you're spending your time? Does it align with your priorities? And then make changes. You're not perfect. I mean, I do this every week, and I've been doing this for like as long as I can remember, for sure over 5 years. And I don't know if I've ever had a week where I didn't change something, right? So I think that's really important when it comes to the power of focus. If you just literally just give yourself the time.
But we could do a series with you, like a real estate MBA. This is such a fantastic conversation. Quickly, it sounds like you read the book, Deep Work. Are you scheduling deep work for yourself each week?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the velocity of money and how that works specifically in your business and in real estate. You and I talked about this the other day. And I think you're going to go there, but just kind of as a reminder for us, we did want to touch on the power of refinance in real estate as well. So velocity of money and refinancing.
Yeah, I got a pretty simple strategy. And well, first of all, velocity of money, like all it is just making sure that, your money is moving. You want your money to, you get money back. It's kind of like when I first started. Like, obviously, I'm much more conservative than when I first started. I didn't have any money when I first started, right? So I would just take all of our money and we'd buy the next deal, right? But then the money comes back in because you add more and more units. When the money comes back in and when it stacks, you got to take that money and you got to send it out again. And then it should come back bigger, right? If you make the right investments, and then you do it again. And as you get bigger and bigger, you should be putting more and more off to the side and being a little bit more conservative in your approach. And but nevertheless, it's like, if you want to velocitize your money, it's like, what is that cash on cash return, or what is my return on my money, and how fast can I reuse it over and over again? Velocity of money is much more important than compounding, right? Ooh. Velocity is using it over and over and over. It's not just like letting money sit in investment to give you returns. That's where refinances come in, right? That's where you can really pick up the velocity. And how I do it, Chris, here's just an easy example. I think in my 11 years now in real estate investing, I think there's been maybe 4 total properties I bought that were listed. And I don't think any were listed over the last 5 years. So I'm buying all my properties off market, first of all. I got an entire acquisition team. We build relationships. And I've never not closed a deal. I got under contract. So I got a strong reputation, and I got people calling off market. Obviously, I'm looking for properties that maybe not everybody's looking for too. I said, I'm looking for that older property, 1950s, even 70s, but it's certainly already built. And I'm looking for the things that like deferred maintenance, mismanagement. I'm even looking for bugs. I'm looking for drugs. Like I'm looking for those type of things that problems. I'm looking for, I love problems. I'm looking for problems. And those problems, as long as they're in a good location. Like I bought some really, really tough properties, but they were in a great location. You know what was bad about the location? That property. I can do that. Like I want my property to be the worst property and every other property to be around, but everybody knows that. But that's what I'm buying, and I'm just buying big ones, 100+ units in good locations and finding these ones that are mismanaged so I can buy it at a good basis, right? So I'll try buy that unit off market so I can get it at a great deal, call it a wholesale type of deal. And then I'm using creative finance if I can, right? Or I'm just using my own money and putting 20-25% down. And if I can't be creative, but I would say at least 25% of the time I can figure out how to do some sort of creative financing. And if I feel confident, and certainly I do now, but I really started to understand that you can, if you feel that the business plan, to get from, Y to X, is pretty solid and you've done it and you know about the risk and how much time, well, then on the way in, leverage is very important. You almost want as much leverage as you can. And so I want to get in that deal, and then I'll spend my own money repositioning it. Okay. I don't use the banks to reposition it. And there's a reason for that. I don't do draws because I have it all in-house. I don't have invoices. I don't have GCs. I got 22 teams right now turning and rehabbing units 24/7. I did 1,529 rehabs last year. Like we can rehab units. This is a whole different podcast, but we can actually rehab unit all the way down in 72 hours. Like that is our special sauce. Everybody thinks it's property management, but we can take a property and we can reposition in 9 to 12 months, not 36 to 48 months. So you talk about velocity of money. I can buy this deal that had all these problems at a really good price, really good basis. Now I'm going to stick millions of dollars into it as fast as I can in all the right areas. And I'm going to upgrade things like the parking lot and the roofs and the windows and the patio doors. But especially, I'm going to rebrand the whole thing. I'm going to make the community look awesome. I'm going to hit every single unit and upgrade them. And then finally update the common areas as well, too. I'll take things like, apartments with 300 police calls the year before, and I'll drop that to 25. Like, by the amount of investment and the change that we're doing in these apartment complexes, which adds a ton of value, right? Even though I'm spending millions of dollars on these apartments, if you can do that, obviously there's people that live there that will give them the opportunity to move to a rehab unit, or we'll give them a little bit less of a rent increase. But usually the people that are doing drugs, that have the past, that are just not following the rules and the policies, they're going to leave. And then we add in, obviously, trying to charge market rent for what we're offering. And we try to give fair value, which substantially increases the overall value of that apartment complex, which then leads me to the refi, right? So if I can do that instead of 4 years, I can do that in 12 months. That's how I've been able to velocitize.
Wow.
Because I can take this apartment complex that's worth $5 million, add a couple million, and maybe it's just an example, not a real example, but now it's worth 10. I can refi all my money back out, and then I can do it again. And the best part about that, you and I both know that property is not stabilized after 12 months. It's only going to continue to cash flow more. A lot of people that don't know me or haven't followed me, like, hey, there's no way he's done this. He's way over leveraged. My debt service credit ratio is 168%. No one's loaning me loans last year in one of the toughest financial environments, helping me buy 1,116 units if I didn't have cash flow, if my debt service credit ratio wasn't covered. You got to remember, this is my own money. Most of this is not even non-recourse. It's mostly personally guaranteed. This is not investors' money. This is my money. So you're going to tell me I'm not going to focus on cash flow and my ability to be able to cover the debt. So we're repositioning these apartments and we're focused on cash flow. Worst case scenario, I can't refi. That's okay. I just have more cash flow, right? Or I just wait, right? We're over and improving these properties. I want to be truly proud of them. I want to do it in a way that's, given the great residents a place that they deserve to live, that is safe, right? That's well lit, that has a lot of the experiences that they deserve in an apartment complex. And obviously those vacant units, I'm putting in people that want to pay that price. They think they can. I know they can walk into our units because our brand team literally takes ideas off of new construction, and we integrate that into our design in our remodels. Like, we want them to walk into our remodels in this 1970 product, and when you walk in the unit, it looks the same as new construction, right? But instead of paying $3,000, you're maybe paying $1,200. So, we make a lot of value that way, Chris. Then after that first refi, I got into the deal. I refied all my money back out. I'm buying the next one. But my other debt strategy, or my restructure strategy, is I don't do bridge debt, never have. And I usually am using local community credit unions that first time. But then when I refi once or twice, I'm moving it to agency debt. So, I'm moving it to long-term fixed financing, non-recourse, set it and forget it. I probably refied 60% of my portfolio in 2022, right before rates really started to rise. So, I just got asked this the other day, how many loans do you have coming up this year? I don't have any coming up this year. I don't let loans get to a year or two. I just refinance it. I think I have 2 next year, maybe 3 the year after. Like, because even though my plan is to refi it in 1 year, I just don't, bridge debt is too risky. I'm putting in 5, 7, 10 years. And then that refi, I'll move it even longer. And if I refi into agency debt, obviously, instead of like local and community banks, I know that I'm probably not going to be able to refi that again until the 15 years comes up. But I'm okay with that. It takes risk off the table. It takes those, like, if you're up at the casino, you can either continue to risk all your chips, or you can take some off the table and play with the ones that you have. And that's kind of like my velocity strategy. Get into it with higher leverage, spend a lot of my own money to really raise the NOI and increase the value and decrease the leverage. Refi again, or refi for the first time, get a lot of my money back out of it, a lot of my work back out of it, and then put that into longer term financing, so I can just go on to the next asset.
If you're taking police calls from 300 to 25, I hope the city's giving you a property tax break or something, because that's incredible. The city should be doing something for you.
Cities, you got to work. By the way, I keep this short. Anybody that's doing rehab, you got to work with the cities, man. Like, you got to get them involved. I walk the mayor, I walk the police. My team walks it with head inspectors right away when we acquire the property. Like just let's. I would love them to see how bad it is day one, and then we always invite them back like 12 months later, because it does help, right? You are able to move a little bit quicker, at least in Wisconsin. Maybe not all states, but that certainly helps.
You're such a process-driven person. I'm curious, do you have a specific metric that you're looking at before you make a decision to refi, or what's your refi process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I don't really look at one certain metric, but I do believe there's a balance of being not over leveraged, which everybody focuses on. Certainly I do. I spend a lot of time on debt, but I also think you shouldn't be over leveraged. You also don't necessarily want to be under leveraged. There's a thing with velocity of money. You also have to consider tax efficiency, right? So, like, for example, if you're at a 250% debt service credit ratio, you're going to pay taxes no matter what you do. I don't care if you do the cost seg, which speeds up your depreciation. You're going to end up paying taxes there. Your cash flow is so strong, right? At such a multiple, you're only writing off a little bit of mortgage interest. Like, you're going to pay tax. And by the way, if that's the worst case scenario, we can all agree that's not a bad scenario. But what I would say is that's kind of what I look at, is like, where's my debt service credit ratio? And also, where's it going? Like, where's the NOI going? How confident am I to continue to go up? For me, because it's all my own money, I know banks are typically at a 120 to 125 is what they want to see. I don't like going under 140. The only time I'm under a 140 is when I'm acquiring the property itself, because obviously I'm acquiring a property with deferred maintenance or drug issues or high vacancy. Of course, the NOI is not going to be great, or the debt service credit ratio is not going to be great. But let's just say after 12 months, or my decision to be able to refi and how much debt I'm willing to put on top of that property, I'm usually want to be at least at a 140, knowing that I can continue to increase it. It's where I am right now. Maybe I was a little bit riskier in the beginning, and just not willing to do that now. I want the cash flow, and I want, as much reserves as possible too. Banking, like lenders in general, if we've learned anything over the last 12 to 24 months, man, like, you want to make sure that you have your money in safe places. And if a bank's not in a good position, that you are, and you can make moves or restructuring or whatever. It's why, like, I just posted about this, but in the beginning of every single year, I take the time to put together all my financials, like good, bad, everything. And I put together a really nice financial packet for my banks. This year is 82 pages long, and I sit down with them face to face. I go over every property they financed. I go over every property that I've ever financed. I give them a global real estate summary. And then I tell them what I want to do this next year. I ask them if they want to be part of it and how much more they're willing to loan to me. And I answer any questions that they want. I just last week I sat down with the CEO of one of the biggest banks they have. They hold about 100 million of my debt, so it's a pretty big credit union. The CEO was there 47 years, chief lending officer 37 years. I mean, this is awesome for even me. I think investors forget, like, you want to sit down with those people and you want them to pick your business apart. Because the questions that they ask, right, for your ability to be able to do more business with them are the things that you should be looking at too. So for anybody that doesn't do that, I think you should just take time, slow down, write down or record or put together your actual results. Don't hide from the bad ones. Just have a plan for them, right? Like, be transparent and, share that with them. Answer their questions. If you can't answer a question, then tell them you get back to them with an answer to their questions, because that's why I was able to acquire a lot, Chris, last year too. Sorry for, jumping onto that. It's just like a hot button for me. I think a lot of investors, like, the only time they talk to a lender, the only time they update their net worth, the only time they look at their cash flow is when a lender asks the question, or when they get a deal under contract. Like, when I get a deal under contract, I want to know that there's 4 lenders that want my business. I've already talked to them. We've already had the discussion, and I already know their deal box. So it's just a matter of, like, what are the 4 ones am I going to pick? And I think if you do that now, you're more ready when you have the deal, and it'll help your close rate too.
Man, we're going to name this whole conversation a real life real estate MBA. This is fantastic, Logan. So thank you. Last question, be respectful of your time, and maybe it's 2 in 1 is, so as you're looking to acquire new properties, 1, what's your buy box? And then 2, what's the most important financial metric and or metrics you're focused on? Like, for us, for example, we're looking at yield on cost and IRR. Are you looking at the same, or what is it for you that says, okay, this is a good investment, we're going to make it?
Yeah, good question. What I look for just hasn't changed over the last 10 years. So we're looking for value add properties in good locations, that have some sort of value add component, right? And we would love to be, I'll look at something over 50 units, but we much prefer 100. In fact, I would love 1,000. Like, the bigger, the better. But we want that in a good location. Midwest right now is where we're focused. And obviously I'm primarily focused in Wisconsin, but it's going to be a B or C class property that has some sort of value add component, and something that we could see from a business standpoint or a construction standpoint that we feel we could really add some value. I think your last question is, is there like one certain metric? There's not really, Chris. Like, I say that because, I mean, obviously we run the numbers, look at what we feel like we can achieve NOI. What's the risk? What's the time to be able to do that? What's the opportunity cost of putting the money in there? I pay attention to cash on cash, right? Because it's all my own money. It's mine in the banks. So, like, if I make this investment, right, what is the return? How much cash am I getting for the cash that I have to put in there? That's that is an important metric, because it's not just the cash to acquire the property. Obviously, if I'm using my own money for CapEx, it's the cash plus the CapEx. And then what does that yield look like? And that number can obviously change if there's a refi, because you get a bunch of that cash back. So the numbers in an ideal world, I a lot of people talk about this, but in an ideal world, your cash and cash can be infinited. Like, if you can put all of your money into acquire, a lot of money to do CapEx, you can get it all back and do it again. I mean, that's ultimately what has helped me scale a lot. It's just harder to do these days. So I certainly pay attention to that. But why the metric varies is because, there's properties where I think people would look at that I've overpaid, and there's properties where I've got good deals where I've underpaid. Why is maybe it's I think a property's value is a different worth in any given period of time. So if I want to be somewhere in the next 2 decades, like maybe have a certain kind of market share in a certain city. It might make sense right now that I overpay or that I buy that because it's close to a bunch of other properties. And I can achieve some economy of scale. So, like you said in the beginning of the podcast, I'm always trying to think in decades. There's a lot of different variables that I think you can consider. The one thing I wouldn't just consider is just like cap rate, or you know what I mean, like or you got, especially in multifamily, you got to look at everything. Like some of the cap rates that I buy, like as is, I mean, might be just awful, right? Like as is with 17 vacancies on a 50 unit complex and rent way below market and whatever, it might look like a cap rate of 4 in Wisconsin, which nobody would buy. But really, if it was ran right, what is the cap rate actually, or what will it be? And I mean that from like a value proposition standpoint. So just consider that.
Well, I think it's a big distinction too, because you own everything. You're not looking to sell, right? You're not a PE firm that's like, okay, I'm in for 5 to 7 years and I'm out and I'm going to recycle that money. So it's a much different, I think, metric and focus for you, which is a great thing, and it's working. So, Logan, thank you for the time. The insight has been absolutely incredible. So I just want to give you the last word. Anything else you want to add or share? And most importantly, how can people reach out to you, follow you on social media?
Yeah, you can follow me at Logan Rankin. I'm on, just got on Twitter, but I'm on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. So you can follow me there. I'm trying to share the journey from a different perspective. I think we're going to work really hard at that in 2024. Just try to highlight like how we're building the business differently, maybe, and try to help a few other people along the way and make education more easily accessible than I think that I had when I first started my journey.
Well, I just want to affirm to you, man, what you did today is clearly in alignment with that mission for 24, because this was outstanding. So again, thank you very much. I hope it was a great experience for you, because I'd love to do this again with you. Okay.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, this Commercial Real Estate Report. I'm Chris Berg, and thank you again to Logan. Please share this video with your friends and colleagues.